You have reached the voicemail box of 360.
God damn it, David.
Hello?
Hey, what are you doing?
Just unloading the car.
What from what? What'd you get?
Well, I had to, okay, so tomorrow I'm losing like 2 of my meat cutters.
Okay.
They have like 75 years of experience between the 2 of them.
Which divided up isn't really that much. I think I have 40 years experience.
And so I have to make chili, I was like, oh yeah, fuck, I'll make chili, whatever. Somebody asked me if I would make it for their last days. And then I guess I'm thinking like, fuck, I gotta make chili for 50 people.
Mm-hmm.
That's a lot. So I had to go buy like this giant 20-quart crock pot and all this stuff. It cost me like $120. Shit.
So you're making chili for tomorrow tonight?
Yeah, and it's already 7:30.
What is it, like bush chili? Like in the can?
No, it's gonna take me like 2 or 3 hours.
David.
Oh,
Yeah,
you
sound terrible.
I don't know what that is though, because I'm not sick.
Welcome to the Meat Block Podcast. This is Travis, and David didn't know I was recording this entire thing. I'm going to edit a lot of that out because it seemed a little sensitive, but I'll keep a majority of it in. What I really was calling about, David, was to just go over some management questions if you had like 20, 40 minutes.
Can we pause it and let me unload the car and then we can do it?
Yes, we can.
Okay, sweet. Yeah, okay. I have like 2 tools. I'll call you back.
All right, bye.
Or you can call me back.
Okay,
bye.
Good cutting enhances the quality of good meat. Poor cutting results in an inferior piece of meat, regardless of quality.
Hey, hello.
Hello. How are you?
Good.
Yeah, the reason I wanted to do this is because I don't really have a plan for the content on later for next week's episode.
You don't have what?
I said I didn't have a plan for the content to put out next week.
Oh, yeah. Cool.
And
I do. I have one, but that could be for the week after that.
Okay. Especially, yeah, because I'm going to be in Sacramento.
Well, that's this weekend, eh?
Yeah.
Cool, man. I assume you're flying down?
Yep.
Sweet.
Yes, I am.
That's great. Hey, you should have some nice warm weather there.
Well, we'll be actually not in Sacramento. We'll be in a secret bunker location in Donner Pass.
Oh, good. Really?
Yes. A bunch of butchers in Donner Pass.
Yeah. Is this some sort of like weird, team building activity where you have to like go to Donner Pass and then each eat a small piece of each other? Not like a finger or anything, but just like a chunk of skin.
Well, we're not going to reveal our secrets, David, because we don't want the other teams to learn how we harness the greatness of Butcher's past. So
yeah, I was hoping to get you to slip there, but I see it's locked up.
It is locked up. Maybe one day I'll reveal it in the temple. And if you're listening to this, there actually is a temple. There's a Butcher's temple. And you most likely just heard about that for the first time, listener. So, David, we've been talking about, I don't have a mouse in my pocket, and neither do you. You have been talking about management for the last couple episodes.
Mm-hmm.
Or an episode earlier, and then this week's episode or past week's episode, however you're listening to this and however you want to jump back and forth with it. So I just wanted to, talk about like where have you worked, or not where have you worked? Don't give me names or anything like that. But what are things you've experienced that you've taken from other places to help you be a manager? Be it like good worth, like what's a good thing that you took from a previous manager where you're like, I need to implement that. And then we'll go further. Okay, continue. Sure. No, go. Jump right in.
I think the first really great manager that I had was when the first chef I ever worked for. I was in Chicago at the time. And I had just become a supervisor and was going to be like helping interview people. And I was asking him about, I was telling him that I was thinking about going to culinary school. And I was asking his thoughts about that. And he told me that whenever he hires people, he has a stack of applications. The first thing he does is he goes through and, he grabs the people that went to school in this particular field.
Yeah.
And immediately throws all of those away. And so, his thought was that he'd rather have somebody who was like enthusiastic and eager and really wanted to learn and was like driven with absolutely no skills whatsoever. He'd rather teach them a trade than have somebody that had skills already but had kind of an attitude issue or like felt like they knew it all or were untrainable for some reason.
Okay. And so do you now throw away applicants who went to culinary school?
No, but I give everybody a chance. I like to have working interviews with people so I can kind of just see how they are as like a team member, and if they have like the instinct to continue to work and like multitask and things like that,
Mm-hmm.
I guess it's like, don't judge a book by its cover when it comes to hiring people. Because, the last few places I've lived have had such a limited workforce with very, very few experienced workers that hiring is always a real challenge.
Yeah. So, and do you take the flip of that about like, do you see someone who you think might suck and then have that working interview and realize, hey man, this guy may have some trainable skills? Or is your instinct always to know that the person who sucks?
My instinct about people that don't have skills, I really don't have one. So I have to rely on that. I kind of like to give them the benefit of the doubt and like to have a working interview, because at the very least, working interviews some pretty good labor for a day.
Yeah.
Cooler can always get scraped if things aren't going too well, but
stodge.
I think the people that are really, really clearly easy to judge that they suck is when they have like a lot of bravado and seem like cocky buttholes.
Yeah.
Can be sometimes unmanageable, and I think you can figure that out right off the bat. It's like if you have somebody that comes onto a job interview and like talks about money the whole time, like how much money they've made or how much money they're worth, or like they want to know how much money everybody's making, shit like that, you can pretty much guarantee that person's going to be a shitty worker.
Yeah. And I agree. What anyone makes is between them and the person who writes their checks.
Yeah.
And
I don't allow money talk on the floor.
Yeah. It's weird. It's awkward. And then people who also, that was weird, like a AOL Messenger alert that my phone did. But one thing I also, I understand, is people wanting to know what the job pays, because certainly,
Oh, definitely.
And then what the realistic upward mobility is at that point, I guess.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's different.
And then what are some, we've all worked with, I think most people have worked with bad managers consistently throughout their careers, because everyone manifests everyone's most likely people have worked with shittier people than those great people that stand out. And certainly people want to vent more about that than the good times. So what are some lessons you've taken from like essentially not what to do? Like, where?
Oh, yeah. Geez, it's going to be hard for me to not like get passionate about this one.
Well, that's why it's a thought-provoking question that will allow us to take a deep dive, get off topic, and tell some stories.
Yeah, agreed. Okay. What not to do? Let's see. What not to do? Do not. Let's see. Do not overpay for overhead. And location isn't everything. Okay. That's the first one. I think that like really stands out. I mean, people will drive for an honest value from a good business.
And then, but what about the management lessons of working with that not so great manager?
With that person, that's the first thing that makes the person. Management, I think. Let's see. Some management things that I learned from that person.
Or that you took, that you're like, that wasn't good. I'm not going to do that. That's a lesson.
Don't have romantic relationships with your employees.
Well, David, I don't know if you know how I met my wife. So,
yeah, but were you her boss? Were you her boss?
I think in theory, but like she wouldn't listen to me.
No.
Yeah.
Still doesn't.
No. I certainly don't. I don't think I had hiring and firing capabilities. And also the place I worked was comical in the way that it was run, where like some of the employees would be like, and I took it seriously at the time too. But it looking back, it's like that place wasn't that great or serious or anything. And then also when you have a shitty work environment, where people loathe working there, where essentially like a lot of people did at that place, I'd pull up.
Yeah.
Like, it's like I would pull up to work and chain smoke in my car until the last possible second before I had to go in. And
I remember those times.
And I didn't know what I was walking into. I didn't know if my bosses were going to be in a good mood or I'm in the weeds. Everything is fucked. Next year's harvest is ruined and it's all your fault. Like,
great.
And like, it was so hot and cold that it just made me like hate it. And
yeah.
And other people felt that way too, where people took pride on making people cry in the walk-in. And I'm like, this fucking a joke.
Yeah.
But
that sounds terrible.
But when you have that shared experience with people, and then you start venting about that shared experience, and that's how relationships build, and that's how mine and my wife's relationship build, because we're like, can you believe this fucking place? Let's go talk about it over a drink, So if you want not your staff to start sleeping with each other, create a better work environment so they won't get drunk. and talk poorly about you. Yes.
Let's see. What are some other ones? I think another managerial or leadership or whatever lesson I learned is like, if you can't pay your overhead and pay your employees what they're actually worth to your business,
Mm-hmm.
but you're making some money, you're not actually making money.
Because you're not invested in your labor?
Exactly. You're not invested in your labor and maybe not your facilities and things like that. You know, if you've got like a ramshackle plant and you're not paying your workers what they're worth and you just have a revolving door, but you're turning a little bit of a profit, you're actually in the red.
Yeah.
That's another one I'd say I learned.
What I would say is, like, if you're a manager and or a owner and you're like an owner manager and it's a small place.
Yeah.
And, you know, yelling at your staff doesn't, it took me not years, but it took me a long time to learn that, like, it's not you catch more flies with sugar and you catch less with vinegar, even though apple cider vinegar catches plenty of flies. But what you want to do is, like, when I talk to people now, or when I'm having difficulty of like telling someone something to do, you know, I have two things that end up screwing me over. One, I say, can you do this? Which allows the other person to make it think like it's a choice. Or I say, can you do this? And then I hear why. And then I immediately get frustrated because I'm, you know, trying to me, it's like production just moves forward. These are like, I've been in this industry. These are the things I need to look at. This is what needs to happen to get done. And the question why is a great question, but doesn't need to be asked all the time. So I now started preemptively just cutting that off, being like, can you do this? And then just giving a 15 seconds explaining why for the day, being like, hey, if you go do this, and then that will free up this person to do that. And then when we're done with that, we'll both meet back at this project. Versus like, go rack the bacons while I'm in the middle of this right now.
Mm-hmm.
I realize you're in the middle of that. Hey, could you go rack the bacons? And then by the time you're done, this will be ready to seal, and then we can box it up together. Okay. Cool.
Yeah.
You know. And then I've been a working manager, you know, all the times I've been a manager.
Yeah.
And I also, but I don't know, it's like, I try to set a pace that I want other people to do. And you know, when dishes are dirty or the shop's dirty, I'll be there just as late as everyone cleaning.
Yeah.
I think that.
Yeah, it's important. It's important to set the pace. It's super, super important. It's never the same as when you're there as a working manager ever.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really good advice.
Yeah, what's like an antidote of like a situation that you feel like you could have handled better now looking back in hindsight?
Oh man. I was working for a large organic retailer at the time.
Mm-hmm.
Many years ago, and I was a supervisor and did not have very much, if any, managerial experience, and also was just generally kind of a piece of shit. as a person in some ways.
Yeah.
And the way that I managed was like, I was everybody's friend.
That's hard.
Except for if you, it's terrible. Well, I have thoughts on that. But I was everybody's friend, except for if you didn't do the things you were supposed to do, and then I just like didn't like you.
Yeah.
And there was this one guy who just like, he was there for a job. He wasn't like invested, and I was like super invested in my career or like whatever, just getting after it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And this guy didn't give a shit. He like, he had like a kid that lived somewhere, and he was like a bartender on the weekends and like to party and loved being in Europe, and he was hanging out.
Yeah.
And he didn't give a shit, and it drove me so crazy.
Mm-hmm.
And I couldn't understand, like, I just judged the shit out of this guy. I didn't think anything about like why he was there, or, what role work played in his life, or like didn't figure out like how I could use him best based on the skills that he does have. I just judged the shit out of him and like smited him constantly. And the tension built between us to where we'd like work a shift and I'd ask him to do stuff. But I was like clearly wound up when I would talk to him,
Mm.
And this is like with that tension, and then he would feel that, and he would like kind of give it back to me, and it was like this constant battle. And then one time, there was these two people that broke into they came into the store, filled their carts with like super expensive shit, like a bunch of booze and stuff,
Mm-hmm.
and like tried to steal it. They both went out through a different exit. One of them got caught and taken up by the loss prevention into the office. They like locked him in there while the cops were on their way. Well, in the meantime, his buddy that got away doubled back, came into the store. Nobody noticed. It was a very busy place. He walked back into the back room, grabbed the knife from the fish department, and went up into where he thought the office was. He lit a fire in the cardboard compactor and in the bathrooms. And then when the fire alarm went off, the security guard came out of the office, and then he like attacked the guy. Well, the security guard beat the shit out of him.
Uh-huh.
Like, he had some martial arts training or something.
Yeah. It's like Javier Bardem from No Country for Old Men when he lights that car on fire and steals everything, but done terribly.
It's similar to that, yeah, but awful. And he didn't have any kind of haircut like that.
That sick-ass haircut, dude.
Fucking sick haircut, dude.
I used to kind of rock that, but mine was kind of feathered, and I look like Farrah Fawcett.
My hair is too curly. If I tried to do that, I'd just look like, I don't know, a guy nobody wants to sit next to.
Yeah. All right, continue.
Anyway, so he's got this fire going. He gets the Christ beat out of him. The other guy's still locked in the office. And in the meantime, we just know that the store's on fire.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're like running out of the building, and this guy was like dilly-dallying.
Mm-hmm.
And I got so pissed off, and there was so much stress because of the fire. I just blew my stack like right in the middle of the store while all this was going on.
Yeah.
And, it almost like came to a fight. Like I just let all of my stress out on him at once and was just like really unloading on him. I was like insulting him and like his work ethic, and just, I was like ready to fight in that moment. It was like trying to make it happen.
Yeah.
And
what defused the situation? Did you come to your senses, or did you?
No, not at all. Not in the moment. He just like stood there and like listened to me.
Mm-hmm.
And he was like 10 years older than me too.
Ugh.
And he patiently waited, and he just kind of like walked away.
Mm-hmm. How
and then I came to my senses after that, and we ended up talking about it and kind of squashing it. But I was so lucky that he didn't just sucker punch me,
Yeah.
I was like so unfocused and rattled that I probably like could have been taken off guard, you know. And anyways, he didn't like file an HR complaint, and we just continued to work together and kind of like started to get along after that. And yeah, what was the original question? An anecdote about what?
I don't know. A story about a time you could have been a better manager.
Oh yeah, all of that. I just made all of the worst decisions during that instance, and I was very thankful that it turned out the way that it did, because I really didn't deserve that.
Yeah.
And so I'm a very different person now, and I'm an extremely patient. I mean, but firm, but like patient manager, you know?
Yeah. And then you were touching base about like how it's difficult, you know, treading that line of like being friends with your employees. And
yeah, I used to work with this guy in Michigan, old Frank, and he was a foreman in the oil fields for decades.
Yeah.
And he was just like a lower level roughneck for a long time. And then at one point he just like, his boss quit or got hurt or whatever, and he was kind of next man up and got called up into being a foreman.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't remember the details of the story, but somewhere in the very early days of that, he was friends with, you know, he was still working with his same crew that he was friends with for a long time, and he was treating them as friends. And something happened, and one of them took advantage of him because of that, and totally burned him. And I think he lost his job. And when he got into another position like that in the same industry, he decided that he would never, ever be friends with his coworkers. He just can't. If you want to be a manager, you can't be friends with your coworkers, bottom line.
Mm-hmm.
And I have found that to be, I mean, you can be friends with your coworkers, but when work gets personal and people bring their personal lives into work, I really think that it damages the actual like production environment, you know, just at least for me. I think that I really like to keep things impersonal. I'm a pretty impersonal person at work. I don't really do any of my actual life. I'm just like at work. That's what I do.
Yeah.
And I'm happy to listen to people about their personal lives, but I share pretty much absolutely nothing, and I don't really hang out with people from work either.
Yeah.
It just works better for me that way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I completely understand. When I was out in Vermont, I made it like this, you know, the first thing that my brother told me when I got off the plane was, you know, don't get anyone pregnant, don't fall in love, don't be stuck out here.
Yeah.
And, you know, I kind of had this weird fucked up mantra that I just went through my head where it's just like, you're not here for, you know, friends, you're not here for this, you're here for work. And
yeah,
and like I was trying to train myself to not really to view, I guess, work as more of a necessity, and not work and try to remove all emotion out of it, which isn't healthy. And when I got promoted to a quality control, and I had new, you know,
I didn't know you work in QC.
Yeah, and I had new guidelines about like what my job was, and
yeah, man,
what I would do, and how, like, doing random carcass checks and then overviewing all the HACCP paperwork. So I became a real asshole to the trimmers.
Yeah.
And a real asshole to anyone doing paperwork that I had to, you know, help review. And yeah, I'm not going to tell those stories in depth because they honestly, I'm ashamed and they make me look terrible. I used to say like every plant needs a person to shit on.
Yeah.
Every plant needs a Jeremy. And yeah, I feel bad. I remember I was talking to this guy and I'm like, hey, he was like real. He would always try to like break the tension or not like try to get to know me. But it was always like weird and like, we just didn't have things in common where it'd be like, hey, Travis. I'm like, yeah. And he'd be like, why are women such bitches?
Oh, great.
And I'd be like, get back to work. Like,
yeah.
And then like, I'm like, what's wrong? Like one day, and he's like, hey, what would you do if someone was talking bad to you? And I'm like, well, like what? And he's like, how you talk to me, what would you do? And I said, well, I wouldn't be in your position. I'm in mine.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I don't know. I don't know where that was going.
Not being friends with your coworkers and just, keeping things impersonal at work.
Yeah. Like I remember one time a trimmer we got an NR and it was a 0 tolerance NR in the cooler. And it was just like, all right, looks like the trimmers can't come back to work until they have a note from an optometrist that they have, that they got their eyes checked.
Oh, man.
I don't think you could do that.
Funny.
But we did.
I want to say something I can't right now.
Yeah. And then like one of the trimmers cut themselves and I was like, be careful, don't get your fucking hepatitis all over the carcass. And then he's like, I told you that in confidence. And I'm like, you didn't say you did.
That's pretty good.
Man, he does a good job of cleaning those carcasses. Do you know what he doesn't do a good job of? Brushing his fucking teeth. He looks like he chews rocks. Get out of here. Yeah. I could go on.
That's pretty good.
The
other thing about being friends with your coworkers is then you're like having your job fulfill your social needs too, and that's not good because then all of a sudden your job is like your life, and then it like feels weird, like high school again.
Yeah, and you need that separation. And then like, what if you become, friendly with a coworker, and then they just don't perform the way you want them to?
Yeah.
That's always weird.
I've been through that before. That was weird. And actually, like, we're not friends anymore.
Yeah. And then, like, my big thing, too, is, like, when coworkers try to, like, like, someone I would just meet would, and it's, like, their first day, and they, like, try to joke with me. And I'd be like, you have no idea what my sense of humor is. It's certainly not why are all women bitches. And I'm sorry if you're offended by that, but that is literally what this guy would say to me. And
was his name Jeremy?
His name was Jeremy. He's gas station shirt, wolf wearing, snake owning, bandana wearing, ex-prisoner.
Yeah. Yep.
I remember when he got like a girlfriend and he'd be like, check this out, and like showing me a picture. I'm like, gross, dude. And it wasn't like a risque picture. She was just a very unattractive woman. But I just remember my brother Well, because I worked with my brother, which I could talk about a whole episode about, like, weird nepotism and weird shit like that. But, like, you know, my brother's like, yeah, it's not necessarily Jeremy. If Jeremy wasn't here, Travis, you would pick out a new person because every plant needs a Jeremy.
It's true, man. Jesus, yeah, it's tough. It's true.
Yeah. And there's many Jeremys in my career, and it's just more or less like, it sucks like that. When I was younger, and this isn't who I am now or any of the skills it's I guess talking about it shows the change and recognizing that shit. But I look back and there's many Jeremys. And,
yeah.
But then there's also like great employees, like, and people that I worked with and mentors and all that shit that, like John Steins is one of my favorite people in the world.
I'm trying to think of my favorite Jeremy.
Your favorite Jeremy?
My favorite Jeremy was I just want to call him a dipshit because that's like what he was.
Uh-huh.
This guy that I used to work with, and I can't tell you how many times this guy put something through the grinder that was not meat.
Uh-huh.
Just again and again. One day he put a knife through the grinder, and I was back on the kill floor, and he was just grinding beef, and the processing room was moving along. And this guy's over there. I don't know why, but he had a boning knife. The guy had a scabbard in the first place. I didn't provide him one at the company because he didn't fucking need one. So we got one off Amazon. Shows up with this ridiculously thick, heavy metal chain and a scabbard, and he's got it full of knives.
Uh-huh.
And they're all like knives from Walmart's fishing section.
Oh my god, I just had the perfect. Oh, continue.
So apparently he's over there on the grinder. This is not a mixer grinder. This is like kind of an old Hobart with a large tray.
Uh-huh.
And it's full of meat. We dump like 2 luggers at a time, so we'd have about 100 pounds of meat on this tray hopper.
Uh-huh.
And he's taking pieces that he thinks are too big, which they are not too big.
Yeah,
and he's cutting them into smaller pieces.
It has a 3-phase motor on it. It will grind it.
That's right. Yes. And he's just over there cutting stuff into smaller pieces with his new knives and cutting it right there on the metal tray. And at one point, the meat cutter, she says, I should edit that name out. She says that he was looking for his knife. He went and did something, came back. He's like, "Oh, where's my knife?"
Uh-huh.
And everybody was like, "Well, we don't fucking know." And then he pulled out another one of these knives and started using that one.
Ugh.
Turned the grinder on. So the next thing he does is he sees it in there. He proceeds to like try the worm out, right? So the auger is obviously jammed up. He tries to pry it open with all of the rest of his knives, breaks those, and then starts breaking other tools on the tool shelf to try to get it out. Never did that. He ended up going home before I came up from killing because he didn't want to face me because the guy made so many mistakes all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And the next day, sit him down. We have another one of these talks that we have pretty often.
Mm-hmm.
And we get out there and we start processing. It's a processing day.
Uh-huh. Talking about feelings, processing. Okay.
Yeah, that's right. And dude, I shit you not. I look over there and he's got a fucking knife on the grinder.
Yeah.
It took us a long time to get it fixed the day before. Hours.
Yeah.
Had to take it over to the farm shop and work. I had to heat it up and all this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So, dude, I had my back to him. I knew he had it. And I said, "Oh, you got to edit that out too."
Why, do these people listen?
No, I don't know. Who knows?
Okay.
And he goes, I know. There's this one piece that's too big. And I was like, John, go home.
Yeah.
I sent him home. I didn't even look at him.
No, I
Jeremy, dude.
Yeah, I have misplaced can't find a knife or a bone scraper or something, and I will shut down everything until that's located. I will empty out an entire grinder. You're like, nope, we're emptying it. Like, I'm sorry. And then he'll be like, where the clipboards are. I'm like, oh, well, good.
Yeah. Yeah, you have to. You absolutely have to.
Yeah. And then your story reminded me of my brother used to work on landing station, seaming out hind legs and landing using trolleys and getting beef from when they had their skin on up on the rail.
Yeah.
And
that's what I'm doing right now.
It's fun. But my brother used to use these like little 5-inch to 4-inch, just like poultry pinner knives. That like venting knives to like seam out the leg because they're super quick to get an edge on, and everyone like would be like, "Oh, he likes these little knives. Look at these little knives." And then,
no, they're awesome.
Yeah, and this guy we worked with, was just a employee, a grunt. He ended up working there for about 1.5 years and learned to gut and learned to split and all that stuff. But he showed up with this like Smith & Wesson, because Smith & Wesson just puts their name on anything.
Yeah.
And showed up with the Smith & Wesson like hunting dressing set with this like,
oh no.
Like with like gnarly fucking like grips where they're like your thumb, like where your finger goes into like one of the things, and like
yeah,
like a cleaver, like this heavy ass skinny knife that's also like a cleaver, and like
it's got like a weird hook or like serrated edge or something.
Yeah, and like this shit didn't fit in a scabbard or anything, and like it came with 3 knives, and one of them was that weird skinning cleaver, and one was the weird serrated knife to saw open the rib cage. Then like this other one was this like 4-inch or smaller, tiny little pointing stabbing knife. And the guy like went up to my brother and was like, "Hey Nate, I know you like small knives. You should try this one. This one's pretty cool. Check it out. It's Smith & Wesson." And my brother was like, "Oh, cool. Yeah, I'll give it a shot." And then like guy came up again like another day when we were like skinning out lambs, and he's like, "Hey Nate, do you want to try that knife? Do you want to, And he's like, "Oh no, man, I just put an edge on this one. I'm good." And then, another day went by, and the guy's like using that weird skinning cleaver thing to like shave a pig's face because he was on like scalding duty. And he's like, "Hey Nate, since I don't need this boning knife, do you want to use it to do that?" And then the guy Corey who was killing is like, "Hey, Nate's just being polite. He doesn't want to use your fucking knife. He actually makes fun of you about it."
Oh man, I love that.
Yeah. And then like
that's really good.
I've never seen so much sadness in a person's eye.
Yeah. Oh man. And fucking shame on you, Cabela's.
Yeah.
And Bass Pro Shop for selling that shit. Those aren't knives, for Christ's sake.
Oh, and Smith & Wesson for just putting their name on anything.
So wait, here I have an idea. I think that we should at the World Butchers Challenge while you're competing.
Mm-hmm.
I can be walking around doing like butcher trivia and then handing out a meat block version of one of those hunting knife sets as a prize. I
like it. And then people are just disappointed at me.
Yeah. I just made that up. That's not true.
All right, David, we've been talking for about 40 minutes and you got chili to make.
I'm already making it, man. I've been cutting onions and peeling garlic this whole time.
I know, it's very audible.
Is it really?
Yeah. Would you expect anything less than audible chili being made while listening to the Meat Block podcast? I don't think so. This is Travis. It's just me right now wrapping down this episode. I hope you enjoyed it. Don't worry. David's just recently moved. He's figuring out his studio so we could actually do these calls where he uses his equipment, so it's just not, able to make chili as we do them. And after this next weekend, probably the following weekend, I will complete the process of building the Meat Block Studio number 2. And if you're looking for ways to support the show, please like, subscribe, and recommend it to other people in the industry. Perhaps a chef, perhaps a fellow cutter or a rapper, or someone who just likes meat in general, or anyone. What you should do is just take anyone's phone with the Apple or a podcast app, and then just download it to their phone, and then it'll get our numbers up, because that's what we're really all about. And if you're looking for a way to support the Butchers of America team, then please check out the links in the show notes and head over to Butchers Guild or the Butchers Guild website. Check out our GoFundMe. And please help out. And if you are a brand or like a knife company, or a shoe company, say you own Crocs, or say you own Bass Pro Shop, or say you own some kind of entity out there, and you want to be associated with the Butchers of America, just like Davidson's Butcher Supply, servicing Southern California in over 50 countries. Started in the 1920s. Davidson Butcher Supply. I recommend them. I've used them for years. I bought so much equipment from Keith, and I want to pay it forward because he's always been nice to me. And he is a huge, huge help to the American team. But that's one entity, and we're forever in his debt. But we need money to help us practice. So if you're also out there and you want to be a part of, pretty much butchery in America and be a part of the future of it, then please contact us and please donate. Until next time, keep your knife sharp and live in the margin.
Sometimes I don't know if I'll make it. Sometimes I wish I could walk away. Sometimes I don't know if I'll make it through. But I'm gonna do it anyway. Got a guitar and a heart that's been broken, a sorry gig and borrowed cigarettes, a song I wrote for them jokers out there toking, and a cherry master choking me in old Knoxville half to death. Lord, sometimes I don't know if I'll make it. Sometimes I wish I could walk away. Sometimes I don't know if I'll make it through. Hell, I'm gonna do it anyway. Shelter, a jag I've been dragging around for days, and a big mouth that had to go and tell her what her big mouth mama told her anyway. Yes, sometimes I don't know if I'll make it. Sometimes I wish I could walk away. Sometimes I don't know if I'll make it through. Hell, we're gonna do it anyway. Yes, sometimes I don't know if I'll make it. Sometimes I wish I could walk away.
so exhausted. I got a new puppy. His name's Max. My son named him. He's a Brittany Doodle. So like the mix between a poodle and a Brittany Spaniel. And then I wanted to get in shape. So I got one of those Pendleton bikes. I keep on wanting to say it's a Pendleton bike. But I don't think the Oregon-based company makes exercise equipment. And I am in terrible shape. And I was seeing this nutritionist, and they're like, what do you do for, like, you know, work? Like, what would you describe your physical exertion in a day? And they're like, you know, do you work in a desk? And I was like, no. And it's like, well, are you active like a carpenter or construction worker? And I was like, yeah, fuck yeah, I am. And apparently I'm not that active. So my body is sore. Apparently I'm not as active as I thought I was. Anyway, till next time.